Hi there folks, I hope you're doing alright. I'm back with another video. It's been a little while since I've made one because I've been busy. I've had to go out and get a job and stuff because lockdown's ended and I can do that now and I need some money, so I had to do that. But I've decided to come back and I've decided to come and revisit the whole lift-off oversteer issue in Automobilista 2 because there have been a lot of comments and it turns out it's a bit more complicated than I originally thought. And what I've had people commenting saying, well, you know, in the last couple of videos, people have been saying, well, you're not demonstrating lift-off oversteer, you're just throwing a car into a corner. And yeah, fair enough, but I was trying to give you a really obvious example. Other people have been saying, you don't know what lift-off oversteer is. I do know what lift-off oversteer is. You learn that when you're young and you take out your 1980s front-wheel drive hatchback and you go round a corner on a country road at about 70 miles per hour, get near the apex, suddenly lose your confidence, come right off the accelerator and the weight shifts and the back end steps out and you have to counter steer. And you get a bit of a surprise. So there's your lift-off oversteer. And obviously as well, you know, you can use it with feathering the throttle as you're going around a corner to help the car rotate. Now, to do that, what I've found, I've been doing having a bit more of a look. And what I've found, I've done a direct comparison here between R Factor 2 and AMS2. And this time, I'm not throwing the car in the corner. I'm just driving around the track. And I'm trying to lift off halfway round a corner. Obviously, I'm not doing a full racing speed. I'm more concentrating on still trying to give you as obvious an example as I can, but more in the way that you'd use lift-off oversteer subtly halfway round a corner. And what I found is a really weird thing. So in R Factor 2 with the McLaren 720S, you lift off at high speed and the lift-off oversteer is really obvious. In fact, it can be dangerous. And in Automobilista 2, the lift-off oversteer is more obvious at low speeds, but hardly obvious at all at high speeds, and almost like it's delayed. You lift off, there's about half a second, then the car sort of turns in, but it's very gradual. It's not, as I said before in one of the videos, you lift off in R Factor 2, Automobilista 2, R Factor 2 or ACC, and the car turns in immediately. Not all the time, but sometimes. But, well, you'll see from these two examples what I mean. I hope this sort of shows you, as honestly as I can, what I found. Let me know what you guys think. Anyway, here's the two examples. Okay, so here we are in R Factor 2, we're in the McLaren 720S, and we're on the default setup. Now, the default setup in R Factor 2 is on the preload for the diff. There is no preload. That's the default setup, none at all. So, we'll just go out on the default setup. We are at Spa. Now, we're going to see what happens if we go straight up to Eau Rouge at full speed and lift off completely. I'm just going to see what happens at high speed. So this may result in a crash. If I can get back on the throttle quick enough after a full lift off, I might save it, but we'll see. Don't overpower the back end too much as we come out. Let's turn off all of the traction control, anti-lock brakes to make this test fair. And coming around, lift off. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we lifted off completely. And as I thought, we've ended up in a crash there. Well, ended up in a spin. Luckily we didn't crash. So big lift off oversteer effect there. Now, we're going to try low speed. So I'm going to leave it in first gear. We're doing 70 miles per hour. When we come around this corner, lift off halfway round, lift off, not much turning. What about this corner here? Turn, lift off, and the car turns in. Same down here, 70 odd miles per hour, and lift off. Not a hell of a reaction. 70 miles per hour. Lift off. Car turns in a bit, but not a lot. Now, how about something a bit more high speed? So we'll get it about 120 around here. Turning. Lift off. Car turns in. Lift off. Car turns in. So that's a higher speed. And around here. Lift off. Car turns right in. Lift off. Car turns in. Another slow corner. Lift off. Car didn't turn in because we've already overloaded the fronts a bit. But let's see what happens when we hit these high speed corners near the end of the track here. So 6th gear, cornering, lift off, and oh, car turned in so violently that I had to counter steer quickly, and we've hit a wall. So that's R Factor 2. So here we are in Automobilista 2. I've set up the car so it was pretty much exactly the same as it's set up in R Factor 2, or as close as damned it. Tyre pressures are the same, suspension is set up kind of the same, and the preload on the diff is completely open, just like it is in R Factor 2. And the main difference I've found is that the lift-off oversteer is more apparent at low speeds, but not apparent at high speeds. It's kind of like at high speeds, it's delayed, or it feels like it's not even there. But at low speed, you can see it. So let's get out there. And you can see my throttle inputs this time. I couldn't get the throttle inputs up on the screen in R Factor 2, but you could hear where I was lifting off. This time you can see them down in the bottom right. So let's see what happens when we get to Eau Rouge. Lifting off now, and we're just fine. Nowhere near as violent a reaction. Now, here's where it should be a bit more obvious. So we're about 70 miles an hour, same as we were last time. Lifting off, and the car immediately turns in. Lifting off, and the car immediately turns in round here. Lift off. Car turns right in. This corner here, really good corner to show it. About 70 miles per hour. Turning. Lifting off. And the car turns in pretty much immediately. This corner here, about 70 like we did last time. Lift off. And immediately the car turns in. So there is lift off oversteer there. But now we did this corner at about 120 in R Factor 2. Bring around, lift off. Not much of reaction at all, or at least it's delayed. Come down to these two corners. Lift off. And it's turned in. Lift off. And it's turned right in there. One down here, 75 we're doing there. Turn in, lift off, and look at that, turn straight to into the apex without any extra steering input. But as opposed to R Factor 2, down here at this last long bottom left-hander, we're going to lift off halfway round. Here we go, lifting off now. No problem. Very, very different to R Factor 2. So it's like the lift-off oversteer at high speeds is much less of a violent reaction in Automobilista 2 than it is in R Factor 2. But we got less of a reaction at lower speeds in R Factor 2. So make what you will of that, but that's as honestly as I can give it to you, and without using crazy examples as well, where I'm throwing it into a corner. It's just lifting off halfway round a corner. But let's just go back to Snetterton, where we originally tried these tests. Okay, and we're going to get a car. Now, this car, the problem, or the main difference does seem to be with cars with limited slip differentials. So I thought, can I find a car that hasn't got a limited slip differential, and has a lot of lift off oversteer? Is there a car with a lot of lift off oversteer? So I happened upon the Formula V. This car does have lift off oversteer, quite a bit of it, and I'm going to try and show you that now. I don't know if this is because this is a low speed car. This car will only achieve about 115, maybe 120 miles per hour. We're on the default setup. But this car, you can practically drive the thing on lift off oversteer. And I'm probably going to have to come, after I've lifted off, come straight back on the throttle to straighten her out. This one's wild. So, here we go. Turning in, lift off, and there we go. It's turned straight in. I've had to come back on the throttle straight away to straighten it out. So I'm on the throttle, 50 miles an hour, lift off, and just turned right in. Let's try and do that again with no steering input. I'm going to turn, I'm going to lift off, and there you go. She's started to turn in immediately, and I've had to come back on the throttle to straighten her out. I'm going to stay in third gear because there's no point in being in second in this car really. Turning in, lift off, and the car rotates around even more. Back end going out a bit there. Let's try this corner at about 70 odd miles per hour. Turning in, lift off, and she turns right in to the point where I've had to counter steer ever so slightly. Coram corner, lift off, turns in, there we go. Coram corner down here is going to be really easy to show you on this. How about here? Lift off, and just turns right in. Now, is that because we're just at low speeds? Is that what Automobilista 2 does? Does it have more lift off oversteer at low speeds? Not sure. Let's see what we can get out of Coram corner down here. Not going to bother trying to show you it with these two corners. Right, round the bomb hole. We'll see what happens around the bomb hole. Turning in, lift off. There you go. Lifted off so much so that that it slid right round, and that's not given us, because we've come off the track there, it's not given us a good enough run up to Coram. So let's come back a bit so we can build up some speed. Spin around. So Coram corner, here we go. Turning. Now I'm going to lift off, and there you go. She turned right in. And to give you an extreme example, I'm going to go back to one of my extreme examples here, just to show you how extreme the lift off oversteer is in this car. I'm going to go up to the top right hander here, about 80, and I'm just going to lift off completely and do nothing else. Lifting off completely. Look at that. And she's turned right in. We've hit the grass. But that's because I didn't counter steer, I didn't do anything, you know. So, in terms of subtle, usable lift off oversteer, i.e. feathering the throttle, that kind of thing, this car you can really do that in. So it's going to be less obvious, but there we go. It's going to be less obvious to show you on video, but just keep an eye on my throttle input. Try this at a sensible speed, lift off a bit, come back on, and it's helped us get around the corner. So there is usable lift off oversteer, but at high speeds it's nowhere near what it's like. Lift off there, that's helped us get around the corner. It's nowhere near what it's like in R-Factor 2, especially at high speeds. So, around here, lift off, car turns in. Lift off, that's helped us get round. No steering input, just lift off, and literally turn right in nicely. So there you go. The lift off oversteer in Automobilista 2 is obvious at low speeds, but not at high speeds. Whereas in R-Factor 2, less obvious at low speeds, much more obvious at high speeds. I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comments.